Red button means we're live. Some casual episode 76, hosted by your boy Stephen Pepper, here to casually talk sports. This episode is brought to you by no one. We got a nice long show, so sit back, relax. I don't know how you listen to this show. Maybe you're out on a run, at the gym, walking to class. However you listen to this show, it's going to be a long one because we have many topics to talk about. Because despite it being relatively a shorter Sunday, I think there's only like 6 games in the 1 o'clock slate and not a lot of huge games I thought there was going to be. There ended up being them. I mean, we got Colts, Patriots, we're going to talk about Lions, Chargers, Browns, Ravens, Texans, Bengals, 49ers, Jags. There's so much football that I want to talk about that I can't even talk about the basketball topics that I want to talk about. It seems like we're going to have to fit that in for another show. But, it's like it's November. Basketball can wait till about February. Basketball is going to, I'm sorry to all the people who love basketball. I think most people who follow me on TikTok, especially, came from my basketball content because when I started to blow up, it was mostly during basketball season. Basketball gets neglected till February for me. I care so much about football that there's just not enough room for basketball, especially on a Monday when there's a lot on a Sunday slate. So let's start with my Colts. They play the New England Patriots in Frankfurt, Germany. First game over there in, I think, that city. The New England Patriots lost to the Colts 10-6. This wasn't a good game. I was sick for many reasons on Sunday morning. And I had to wake up 9:30 to see this game. It made me even more sick. I mean, I was happy at the end of it because the Colts won, but this was such a free win because the Patriots suck. This team cannot do anything right. I think they did with Ramondre Stevenson, run the ball decently well, but other than that, special teams, defense, Mac Jones passing the ball, everything, every facet of the game, coaching, this team is just not good at. They're 2-8. It's the worst since 2000. And it's something that I've never seen before because as a guy, as an NFL fan who was born in the early 2000s, the Patriots were a winning team before I was born. They were starting to win their Super Bowls right when I was born. So when I started to watch football when I was like actually literally born for all the way to like now, all I've known is a Patriots dynasty. I was born into the dynasty basically. So seeing this 2-8, because I wasn't born in 2000, I've never seen the Patriots like this. It's clear to me that the Patriots, this was a free win, by the way. Gardner Minshew did not play well at all. He looked panicked in the pocket. He had an interception. Didn't look good. The Colts scored 1 touchdown. It was early in the game, only put up 10 points and still won. It's clear to me that the Patriots need to rebuild across the board. And that means, I know a lot of people from Boston aren't going to agree with this, but it's time to cut ties with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots. He's been there since the start, since they drafted Brady till now. He's been very successful. I'm not saying fire him in the season, but give him one of those like parting ways type fires in the offseason and move on. Listen, if you want to start a new era in New England, you can't have relics of the past. You can't have the ghosts of Patriot Way and Tom Brady weighing down on you and trying to repeat the past. It's clear that Belichick's old, grumpy, stubborn, and still thinks it's 2014, and he can do this Patriots way thing. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's 2013. The Patriots need to move on, get some new need some new thoughts, new brains, fresh air in that facility. As a GM, Bill Belichick has insane amount of power in the Patriots because he's not only just the head coach, he's the general manager as well. And as far as being a GM, he has been terrible in the last decade as a general manager. Bill Belichick has not drafted a non-reserve Pro Bowler since 2013. I mean, technically, he's drafted some Pro Bowlers since 2013, but they all been like reserves who get in the next day when people can't go. I'm talking about people who are immediately selected to be a Pro Bowler. He has not drafted one since 2013. The last one was like Jamie Collins, like 2012, 2013. That is hard to do. You've had a decade worth of drafts, and you haven't drafted a non-Pro Bowl reserve in 10 years. The Patriots could possibly draft number 1 this year. They're 2-8. I wouldn't trust Bill Belichick with all these picks. I wouldn't. I think I'd be scared he'll mess it up. I would. As someone, like, he cannot draft or sign a legit offense. Post Brady, this has been their biggest issue offensively. They can't sign a dynamic and create a dynamic offense that's speed and can put a lot of points on the board. They've whipped on so many receivers. Their best receiver in the last couple of years, Jacoby Myers, he's over there in I was about to say Oakland, over there in Vegas. He's balling. Been one of the sleeper guys in fantasy football, putting up a lot of numbers, eating up Devontae Adams productions. We remember the N'Keal Harry whiff. I think Aguilar was on this team. Juju Smith-Schuster, Probably the biggest signing from a receiver they've had since post Brady. He had one catch yesterday for like 9 yards. Offensively this year, this team is putting up 14 points per game. It's the second worst in the league. Defensively, too, this has been Bill Belichick has defensively. Bill Belichick is a defensive head coach. That's his bread and butter, what made him so great throughout all the years, going back to when he was defense coordinator of the Giants. It's regressing to the middle of the pack now. I know they have some injuries, but this team has allowed 29 points or more four times. They never used to do this. Another thing with Belichick, too, he's just so in love with hiring all of his buddies as coordinators. Think about they've had so many troubles with offensive and defensive coordinators throughout the years, and it's just not working because Belichick keeps hiring his buddies instead of just getting the best people available. And now, which was something I never thought could happen, he's a questionable head coach. I mean, think about what he all did in Germany. All-out punt. He let a punt roll 20 extra yards because he sent an all-out punt. He had a field when points were so hard to come by when they needed a touchdown. He elected to kick a field goal at the goal line instead of going for it. And then he pulled. This was the worst mistake ever. I get you want to bench Mac Jones, but when you bench Mac Jones, bench him in the second half. Don't bench Mac Jones when you're on your last possession under 2 minutes trying to go win the game. When Bailey Zappi did not have a single 2-minute drill rep with the starters. You're asking Mac Jones, I know he didn't play that well. He is much better suited to go out and win that game than Bailey Zappi. You pulled him. He's now questionable as a head coach. Let's face it, Tom Brady's gone. I think Belichick contributed a lot to the dynasty, but Brady was at least 60% of the dynasty. And the AFC East is getting stronger by the year. The Patriot way seems like a thing of the past, and Belichick is trying to hold on to it as long as he can. I think the Patriots going forward should go younger at management, get the grumpy, old, stubborn guy out off the team. And it's 2023. Offensive head coach. This offense has been holding this team back for so long post Brady. They need explosion. Go get an offensive head coach. I think you cut ties with Bill Belichick now and then grow into a new era. You're most likely going to have the 1, 2, or 3 pick. And then you go on from there. You rebuild the offense. You get a new GM, a younger guy, more innovative offensive head coach, and just cut Bill Belichick. Because post Brady, Belichick is going to be hard to cut him because he's done so much for this team. He's won a lot, 6 Super Bowls, but it's not working anymore. I mean, his biggest whiff was Mac Jones. A lot of whiffs, terrible drafter, and now as a coach, he seems that he's declined as a coach. He's no longer one of the best coaches in the league. All right, let's go to Lions-Chargers. So the Chargers, this is so funny because it feels like the Chargers play like 2 or 3 games like this a year, and it's always at home. They lost, what's new, 41-38 to the Detroit Lions. Again, proving that the Chargers just can't seem to win these big games. Like I said, it seems like they play 2 or 3 games like this a year. They already played a game like this season against the Dolphins opening week, always at home. They played the Browns like this a year or so ago. They play so many games like this. So we're 3 years into this whole Staley Chargers head coach thing, and what have we seen? 1 playoff appearance, 0 wins, missed the postseason 2 years ago when he should have, and he's going to miss the postseason again this year. Now, I'm more critical of Justin Herbert than most people, but I agree that the Chargers just cannot contend, despite even having a top 5 quarterback, because of this defense. Staley's a defensive head coach. Comes in 2021. 10th worst defense when it comes to yards allowed and 3rd worst in points per game allowed. 2022, when they made the playoffs, a little bit better, 11th worst in yards allowed and 13th worst in points per game allowed. And then 2023, and then this year in 2023, 2nd worst in yards allowed and 9th worst in points per game allowed. What is Herbert supposed to do playing behind this defense? You're asking Justin Herbert to play nearly perfect every single game to make the playoffs. And he has been. He's breaking records. Herbert, throughout his career, is just breaking every record. He's breaking rookie records, breaking fastest to this yard mark, fastest to this touchdown mark, and they can't even make the playoffs. Yesterday, he was pretty much perfect outside of interception, 27-40, 323 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, offensively, what more can you ask when you're 50% on 3rd down, 3 for 3 on 4th down, and you score 38 points at home? Stats like that sound like a dominant Chargers win, but they lost. because they allowed yesterday 41 points. And this was the huge thing. 177 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half. The offense, Staley was asking Justin Herbert to win a game down 17-3 off rip. But Justin Herbert, being one of the best quarterback talents in recent years, despite not having 2 of his best receivers and injuries all over the place, was able to score. But even scoring, the Chargers scored 5 straight touchdowns on their final 5 drives, but couldn't get any separation because the Lions scored after every single Chargers score. Chargers got a field goal, Lions touchdown. Chargers got a touchdown, Lions field goal, or Lions touchdown. Happened every single time. Check the box score. I couldn't believe what I was watching. And the biggest play of the game, Lions went for it on 4th down because they knew they didn't want to get the ball back in Justin Herbert's hands to go win the game or send it overtime. So instead of kicking a field goal with a minute 30 left, they go for it on 4th and 2 to extend the drive and bleed out the clock for them to kick the game-winning field goal without giving the hands back into Justin Herbert. And the Chargers couldn't get a stop. I mean, it was just big play after big play for the Lions. 323 passing yards for Jared Goff. Lions had 8.3 yards per play. It's just big play after big play. I mean, this is why they lost the playoff game to the Jags. Although they were up, I think it was like a ridiculous 27-0, something like that. It was pretty crazy. Why they lost the game in that second half is because it seems like the Jags just got big play after big play, blown coverage. It's like guys one-on-one, wide open. I mean, so many touchdowns against the Jags last year, just wide open. And it was like that with the Lions. They were just getting huge runs with Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs. And the Chargers couldn't do anything about it. The Lions punted once all game, and Goff was not touched. No sacks. And it's crazy to me because when I look at this team, I think this is one of the most talented rosters, that being the Chargers, in the league, especially defensively. When you're talking about guys throughout the years, I know J.C. Jackson's gone, Casey Hayward's gone, but you got guys like Bosa, Mack, Derwin James, good linebackers. There's talent on this defense. You can't tell me there's not talent on this defense. You play Madden. You can't tell me there's no superstar X factors on this defense. But the thing is this defense somehow just can't be consistent. Last 2 games, they looked pretty good, but they played the Bears in Bajet. They played Zach Wilson, that offensive line, in the Jets. Now they actually played a real team. This was supposed to be a statement game, not only for the Chargers because they can't win a big game, but for this defense to say, okay, we're going to carry what we've done the last 2 games with our takeaways and our sacks and our dominant defensive line with a Bosa and a Mack off the edge, and we can get takeaways. They couldn't do it against this Lions team. Brandon Staley's got to go. I know back-to-back segments to start the show, I'm calling for coaches being fired. I'm going to wait to the offseason to fire Bill Belichick. I'd fired Staley right now. This team isn't going to make the playoffs. I thought this team had a chance to make the playoffs. It kind of had to get one now because they still have to play Kansas City again. They need to beat Detroit. They beat Detroit. Okay, Chargers in the playoffs. This offense is really good. Defense can make some plays. Sometimes, like the Browns, they let up a lot of points yesterday. But when it came to second half, lock in, allow the Browns offense to come back and win the game, they made stop after stop after stop. Some defenses can bend, but not break. Chargers defense bent so hard it broke early and they couldn't repair it. At least if you're going to give up a lot of points, make the stops when needed to at the end, and then I'll be like, okay, Staley, fine. But you're the face of this defense. This is your side of the ball. You came in to fix this defense. And not only are you allowing a lot of points, you keep allowing a lot of points and can't get a stop. Now let's talk about the Browns. Kind of a little transition to the Browns. The Browns yesterday came back down 14 in the fourth quarter to beat division rival Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, 33-31. The Cleveland Browns are 6-3 today and are a game behind the Ravens, half a game, for AFC North. So early in the season, I wrote an article after the Browns beat the Bengals saying, you know what? I think the Browns could very well win this division. I think they have the roster to do so. I said preseason that the Browns are a playoff lock. And I was like, I think the Bengals are probably still going to win the division. But then after they beat the Bengals, all right, the Browns are my favorite to win this division. I think they really can. And it was also because the Ravens early in the season didn't look like they could win the division. But then last week, you guys remember I said the Ravens are the best team in the AFC. They kind of looked like it, but the Browns said, hold on. let's put my hat in the race. It's because of this roster. I mean, this roster is so good. I know Nick Chubb's out for the year. He got out for the year in week 2, but they still have decent backs. Hunt scored a touchdown, I think, in the last 5 games. Jerome Ford just went for 100 yards. They have a solid backfield steal. Amari Cooper is still a great wide receiver. Elijah Moore also caught a touchdown. Njoku's a top 10 tight end in this league. The offensive line is still really good. And defensively, we know Myles Garrett, Delpit. They got a Denzel Ward, Greg Newton. They got a lot of guys on defense, led by their defensive coordinator, Greg Shorts. This is a great roster. But it's felt like last couple of years, I mean, for their entire franchise, they've been a quarterback away. They've always been in need of a quarterback. But these last couple of years especially, I think in the Baker Mayfield era, when they've had a Super Bowl winning roster, in my opinion, they kind of felt like they've been a quarterback away. And they felt like after giving a couple of years for Baker Mayfield, now you can say they gave up on Baker too early. That's fine. But they had a chance to get Deshaun Watson to really solidify their quarterback position and go compete for a Super Bowl. That was a thought. And they gave him guaranteed money when they traded all those picks for him. And it looked at the time, all the way till before that game, it looked like one of the worst deals in NFL history. Gave up all those picks, most money in the league to a quarterback, guaranteed. It looked like one of the worst deals in NFL history. And because I know last year we kind of just scratched it off because he because he was suspended. He took a year and a half off. He was suspended, then came off of that injury, and he looked rusty last season. But to start this season, he hasn't looked that good at all, especially against good teams. And early in the game, I thought this was just a continuation of Deshaun Watson not looking good and just being a waste of a trade. I mean, he had that early pick 6 in Baltimore. Lions just put up 41 in LA. They look like a dark horse Super Bowl team. The Lions do. A lot of people picking them to be a dark horse team. That team got destroyed in Baltimore, like 38-3. Same with Seattle. A really good team that was leading the NFC West before they stepped into Baltimore. And Baltimore destroyed them as well. Baltimore, I think, beat the Lions in the Seahawks and combined like 75-9 in Baltimore. So, like, that's where Deshaun Watson was throwing that pick at, and the game kind of fell over. I mean, Watson in the first half was 6 for 20 in the first half. And then especially, like, to start the game, he was 1 for 9 with the pick 6. The man was 6 for 20 with the pick 6 in the first half. Game was, like, over. And then off rip in the second half, Odell Beckham goes for a long touchdown. It's like 24-9. I'm like, oh, GG. This is one of those games that Baltimore wins like 35-10. But Watson was perfect in the second half. I didn't see a single incompletion from Watson. I could have been tripping. I don't think I saw a single completion from Deshaun Watson. Watson being perfect in the second half, on top of that defense, proved to me that the Browns, I said this in my article, that the Browns can be contenders if he's just serviceable. Because Watson hasn't been serviceable this season. He was a little bit serviceable against Cincinnati. But if he can be serviceable, now, if he could somehow return to 2020, Houston, Deshaun Watson, who was playing like a top 5 quarterback in the league, okay, this team might be the best team maybe in the NFL. Yes, if Watson's back to Houston Watson, that's the best team in the NFL. But if he can just be serviceable, clean game, no pick sixes, not taking a lot of sacks, can throw for a touchdown or 2, uses his legs very well. He had a huge run for a first down in the second half. He used his legs very well, capable. This team can push for a Super Bowl, or at least make a deep run. And when you're playing behind a defense like the Cleveland Browns, anything's possible for Deshaun Watson because this defense is the best in the league. They're number 1 in yards allowed, in 5th in points. This defense is extremely good. Delpit, Ward. Now, Ward suffered a little injury. Newsome, linebackers. Obviously, the defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett. This defense, I know they gave a lot in the first half and then immediately surrendered that Odell Beckham Jr. touchdown in the second half. But Baltimore still in the second half had a lot of huge plays to like Mark Andrews and company, Lamar scrambles for them to even put up more points in the second half. But the defense of the Browns clamped up and only allowed 14 in the second half. They had that huge pick 6 to even try to tie the game and forced a lot of punts to take it out of field goal range when it looked like Baltimore was going to run away within the second half. So the Browns are legit. We know this defense is really good. This is the best defense, in my opinion, in the league. They got stars all over the place, and this is an historic defense. They don't give up much yards. They don't give up many points, and they have Myles Garrett, who could be a dark horse MVP. We won't get it because we're still going to give it to a quarterback, and we're going to get to an MVP later in the show. But that's like an MVP. He's playing like an MVP level defender. I don't say that much to defenders, but he's playing an MVP level defender. But if Watson, who was great in the second half, horrible in the first half, I was like, all right, Watson, like, come on, dude. Like this game again, just give the Browns one game to seem like the contract was worth it. Contract's still not worth it. But if he could have more halves like he did in the second half, then people in Cleveland are going to be like, okay, this contract was kind of worth it. Probably still won't be worth it at the end of the day unless they win a Super Bowl. I don't think this contract will ever be worth it unless they win a Super Bowl. But if Watson can play like this, behind this defense, push forward in the playoffs, more and more people in Cleveland are going to saying, okay, this was a lot of money, but what could we have done? All right, let's do Texans-Bengals. So the Houston Texans, also just like the Browns, game-winning field goal against an AFC North player, Cincinnati Bengals, 30-27. So sports fans for years have debated what the criteria for the MVP is. Is it the best player on the best team? Or is it a player who's the most valuable to his team's success? So in the NFL, it's usually, last couple of years especially, it's been my biggest critique of this award. It's been to the best quarterback on the best team. But when it comes to MVP, most valuable player, I wrote an article this week saying that before this game, Joe Burrow was the most valuable player in the league. Not the MVP on the best quarterback on the best team, but the most valuable player in the league because I thought the Bengals solely beat to the drum of Joe Burrow. And it was clear because in the first 4 games, Burrow was dealing with a calf injury. This was the worst offense in the league. They were 1-3, but Burrow gets healthy. Now they beat the 49ers, Seahawks, Bills. Now they're one of the best offenses in the last couple of games. He goes like 10-2 in 4 games on touchdown interception ratio. But on Sunday, I saw someone go into Burrow's house and win. And today, I know everyone's saying this, so I don't think I'm ever going to clip this, post this. I'm not going to make this a long segment because a lot of people on sports media I know guaranteed are saying this today. So this is not my take. But CJ Stroud is the most valuable player in the league. So CJ Stroud, I liked him coming out of college. Again, I was more of a Stroud over young guy. But I wasn't that high on Stroud. I didn't see superstar out of Stroud. Although I was a Stroud over young guy, I didn't see superstar out of Stroud. My friend who texts me after every Stroud game saw superstar out of Stroud. I didn't. The IQ test, I know we overblew that IQ test, but still, it was a little concerning. And the 0-2, especially to Michigan. Never beating Michigan in big games. Stroud, I didn't like how Stroud can play from behind and deal with adversity. And I didn't know how he can see a field when OSU quarterbacks historically struggle seeing a field because they always have a clean pocket and their first read is always open. I mean, Stroud had a historic wide receiver room. You're talking about Olave, Wilson, Smith and Jigba, just guys, Ibuka, just guys. We knew he had the touch, though. I never denied he had the best touch in college football. But now he's clutch and can clearly deal with adversity. Last 2 games, comeback drives in the fourth quarter, clearly can deal with adversity, and he can make big plays. He can see the field. That offensive line in Houston is not that good. It's not like it's Jamar Chase he's throwing to, or it's not like he's throwing to like Olave. He can see the field. He's answering all the questions I had about him coming into the season. The Texans were 3-13-1. Picking number 2 in the NFL draft with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. Rookie defensive head coach, by the way. You know I don't like defensive coaches. And now the Texans today are 5-4. And if the playoffs started right now, the Texans would be in it. They just beat Cincinnati Bengals, one of the premier teams in the NFL, on the road. I mean, CJ Stroud against the Bengals, 23 of 39, 356 passing yards, and a touchdown. He did have an interception. It wasn't the cleanest game in the world. It wasn't a perfect game. But he had that 470-yard game and 5 touchdowns against the Buccaneers. He's got 3 games over 350 yards passing. This could be the best rookie quarterback season ever. mean, when I look at his stats, his total stats compared to the rest of the league, just to help his MVP case out a little bit, he's got the most passing yards compared to other quarterbacks who've played only 9 games. He's second in passing yards right now. Sam Howell's the only quarterback who has more passing yards than him, but Sam Howell's played an additional game. Stroud's also third in yards per pass. There's a siren going past my house. Like, that's siren like number 10 today. Stroud is also first in yards per game. Tied for fifth in passing touchdowns. And only second in interceptions. Not second. He only has 2 interceptions on the year. That is insane. Insane. I think he had the longest start to an NFL career without an interception. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2 interceptions, but he's tied for fifth in passing touchdowns. First in yards per game. Doesn't turn the ball over. He's making some exceptional plays. And that, like I said, that touch that we knew he had coming out of college, it's there. It's there. And he came into the game 4-4. The Texans did not have an 100-yard rusher all year. They had one with Devin Singletary last night. But coming into the game, he managed to win 4 games without a 100-yard rusher. He's got wins over like Jacksonville. He's got some good wins. Now he's got a win over Cincinnati. Record is going to make it tough for him to win the MVP. I know it will. Because like I said, usually goes to the best quarterback on one of the best teams in the league, 1 or 2 seed, putting up a lot of good stats. Stroud's going to have the stats by the end of the year. I don't think the Texans are going to have the record. He's going to have to bank on Lamar Jackson, them continuing to lose, because they're still 8-1, 8-2, 7-2 teams in the league. Philadelphia's like 8-1. Kansas City's like 7-2. He's got to bank on a lot of teams losing. But when I just take the record away, CJ Stroud might be the best quarterback in the league. Playing like it. Not like I still think Mahomes is like a better, like, you know what I mean? He's playing like the best quarterback this season. Take the record away. If you were to give an MVP solely to a player, no record, I know record kind of matters. I get it. It would be CJ Stroud. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Because the difference is, when you look at Carolina, I ripped on Carolina and Bryce Young. I said getting Bryce Young was a mistake. I said that last show. The difference between Carolina, I know Carolina's a bit less talent, but it's not like Houston's the most talented team in the world. Carolina's like 1-8. Houston's 5-4. Biggest difference, both have 2 new head coaches. Well, Frank Wright's been coaching my Colts, but like as far as like their first year on that team, not talented rosters, terrible O-lines. Difference is Stroud versus Young. If Stroud was on Carolina, don't think they'd win as many games as they are in Houston, but he would win more games than Bryce Young. That's the difference. This is the most valuable player in the league. Can't believe that a 3-13-1 team is off to the races like this. Again, it's not like this team just had like this dominant NFL draft where they just drafted a bunch of all-pros. And I know they traded up to get Will Anderson as well. This team, like wide receiver wise, Noah Brown, no one even heard of him coming into this season. He was like from Dallas, wasn't used a lot. A lot of the guys are playing like Tank Dell. Not a lot of people saw Tank Dell being like JSN. They didn't see Tank Dell being like that. It's kind of crazy. Robert Woods was their best like wide receiver signing. Just get like a catch a game. That's the most valuable player in the league. I got class soon, boys. So let's go wrap this up with Jacksonville Jaguars and the 49ers. Jags hosted the 49ers. It got completely destroyed. Bent over, spanked, 34-3. Now, if you've been following this show, I predicted a ginormous offensive leap for the Jags this season. I'm talking about like second year with Peterson and T-Law duo, plus Calvin Ridley. I thought the Jags were going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC and have one of the best offenses in the league. I thought their schedule was Mickey Mouse, AFC, their AFC South, all their comp games. I'm talking like the Bills was the Bills was overseas, the Chiefs, 49ers, Ravens, and all the teams that they're going to play to fill out the rest of the season, all in Jacksonville. They had a pretty easy schedule. It's week 10. Where's this offensive leap? I'm not the only one who predicted this for the Jaguars. Where's it at? Offensively, the numbers are actually down from last year. If you take a look at it, 2022, they averaged 357.5 total yards of offense and 223.8 points per game. 2023, they're averaging 328 total yards per game, and 21.8 points per game. Those are all those numbers are middle of the pack compared to the rest of the teams in the NFL. When I saw him play when they played San Francisco in Jacksonville, 49ers just looked completely out of their league. 34-3, Jags couldn't even get the ball in the end zone. Trevor Lawrence, I was kind of banking on most of the Jags' success coming from Trevor Lawrence taking that MVP level jump. This is his third season. I'm not seeing it. I don't see an MVP caliber player yet from Trevor Lawrence. He's still one of the better quarterbacks in this league, but I don't think he's push. I don't think he's one of the upper echelon quarterbacks. He's thrown for just over 300 yards once. Don't tell me he doesn't have good weapons. He does. And on the year, he's got 9 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. The Panthers and Pats as a team have more passing touchdowns than Trevor Lawrence. Look at their quarterbacks. Bryce Young, Zappy, Mac Jones. Those teams got more passing touchdowns than the Jags. And the offensive line is still shaky for the Jags. Lawrence last night got sacked 5 times. Calvin Ridley, who I thought was a dark horse, not winning it, just a dark horse, offensive player of the year, because when we last saw him, the dude can get over like 1.4 thousand yards on the season. This year, it's been pretty much irrelevant. It's clear that Christian Kirk is the preferred target still 10 weeks into the season than Calvin Ridley. Ridley has over 100 yards twice on the season. He's got 2 catches for 20 yards yesterday. I mean, I drafted Calvin Ridley on my fantasy football team in one league, thinking that he would explode. He did week 1, was irrelevant for like the rest couple of weeks. Was good against Buffalo, but that's it. Against the Colts and against the Bills. That was really the only highlights for his season. Of course, I traded him early into the season. And a lot of people were kind of people in my league were like, oh, you're trading after one bad game. Yeah, because I saw this coming. And I just don't see where this is going to get better. 11 team fumbles. This team turns the ball over a lot. That's second worst in the league when it comes to fumbles. And they had a lot against 4 turnovers against the 49ers. They're 6-3, so there's still hope they can be one of the top seeds. And it's the AFC South. So you could feel like, okay, they can still win the division. But here comes Houston. Houston beat them earlier this season. I think that was also in Jacksonville. Now they host the Jags. Houston is only a game out. And they still got one more against Jacksonville. Division doesn't look that safe. I think the Colts are 5-5. Jags swept the Colts, so it's like whatever. But this Jags team, man, I don't see the leap. Where's this leap? I've been waiting for this offensive leap for the Jags. We're 10 weeks in the season. I don't really see it. They don't score over 30 a lot. ETN has been insane. They clamped him up instantly. And as far as the passing attack, I'm focusing on more of the passing attack. This isn't that great of a passing attack at all. 9 touchdowns. He's got less than a touchdown a game. Does Trevor Lawrence? We're in week 10. Going into week 11 in a day after the Monday Night Football. That's really concerning. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns against San Francisco. Where's this offensive leap? Now, when I'm looking at the rest of the Jags schedule, can they still come alive? Yes, because they still have a relatively easy schedule to close out the year. I mean, they have some good teams on the schedule. They still have some good teams on the schedule. Don't get me wrong. But they host the Bengals. They're in Cleveland. Okay, never mind. This schedule's tough. The end of the season is pretty easy. At Baker. First, they host Bryce Young. Then at Tennessee. At Will Levis. But this next couple stretch, they get to play Will Levis at home. They need that win because then they go at C.J. Stroud, who's already beat them. They host the Bengals, prime time. Then they go at Cleveland, host the Ravens, prime time. And then they go to that 3-game stretch to end the season. It's a mid-schedule. There's some tough games, but this could get a little rough, though, because if they can't figure out that offensive attack that I've been kind of hoping they would have this season, my Jags prediction is going to look a little weak. But I was banking on year 2 of Peterson and T-Law as a duo, plus adding Calvin Ridley to that offense with a Josh Allen on defense, pretty solid defense pieces, to make them the number 1 seed in the AFC and one of the best total offenses in the league. None of that's happened. None of that's happened. Where's his offensive leap? But I want to thank you guys for watching the 76th episode of Some Casual Takes. Follow all social medias to stay updated on all things related to shows. Some Casual Takes the handle on everything. And until the next show, turn on notifications when you get that next show. And I'll see you guys then. Peace.